Dow Jones Industrial Average down 2.6%. The NASDAQ Composite down 4.25%. S&P 500 down 3.5%. All of this on the backs of the inflation readings that we got. All of this drift also headed into the Federal Reserve meeting later on this week. When we take a look at the components of the market that are contributing to a lot of the selling that we've seen so far this morning, you can see red across the board. And Nikiko, we were talking about this just before. Interesting to see energy down today, down about 6%. This is despite the fact that in previous sell-offs so far, this has usually been a winner.
Yeah, it really does feel like there's still the spillover that's coming from what we saw on Friday, that inflation print. Obviously, we had that 800-point drop to close out the week last week, and that's really continuing in the lead up to the Fed meeting this week. A lot of expectations here about whether, in fact, the Fed could potentially signal a more aggressive move. I want to point to financials here, too, because we were talking about this. Oftentimes we talk about the rates going higher being, beneficial to the big banks. That hasn't necessarily been the case. So it's one of those days where we're seeing a broad-based sell-off, not a whole lot of correlation that we usually point to.
Yeah, you can see JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, both down over 3%. If we take a look at just kind of the yield movements that we've been seeing as well, obviously the bank's paying very close attention to what's going on in fixed income. You can see a lot of movement in the 10-year, not necessarily this morning, but of course on a two-day basis, rising, or actually if you take a look before as of the Thursday number, you can see it's risen by about 25 basis points after that 8.6% inflation read. And I want to note that we've seen a lot of movement in Fed funds futures contracts. You can see that right now, actually markets are pricing in about a 35% chance of the Fed doing a 75 basis point move on Wednesday. This is despite the fact that Fed Chairman Jay Powell has said we're going to do 50 in that meeting. So markets may be testing the resolve of the Fed. And then one other point I want to make, actually a few minutes ago, we actually got some data from the New York Fed showing expectations among households that they surveyed increasing to about 6.6% on a year-ahead basis. If you take a look at just how Americans are feeling about this, they're continuing to expect inflation to rise even higher.